Welcome to the Dojo Talk Podcast. Please remove them shoes before entry.
The master is here, and you still have not taken off your shoes.
Yeah. Living every day to define man's mission. Looking to the sky for divine transmission. Deaf man's vision makes the blind man listen. Eyes on the prize, this is blind ambition. Thank you.
Yo.
Blind ambition.
What's going on, world? I'm back. This is episode 3 of the Dojo Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Serial Sensei. And yeah, another week. It is January, what day is it? January the 12th. Pretty gloomy day outside, at least on my side of the world. Well, sun might be coming out, but I'm here. Excuse my voice. I have been sick this entire week. Actually, I feel like this entire month, to be honest. And I've been coughing, so if I die and cough on this podcast, I apologize in advance, but just warning you, it might happen. I got a lot I want to try to run through. Hopefully I can do within like an hour or so. I got some sports I want to talk about, but the main focus, I do want to get to 2 animes that I did recently finish, which are Your Lie in April and the second season of Ajin that popped up on Netflix. Hopefully I can get to those, but I gotta start off with my sports talk a bit. And actually, before I do my sports talk, just so there's no confusion, I gotta throw my sports allegiances out there now so people know what teams I actively root for, so you know what biases I may or may not have. So I'm gonna just run down real quick the sports that I watch or keep an eye on somewhat, so y'all know who I'm rooting for, who I don't really mess with, all that good stuff. So actually the first thing I wanted to talk about was college football. So I'm gonna just run down my college teams real quick. It's real simple: Texas Longhorns, TCU Horned Frogs, and that's it. Shout outs to my stepbrother. He used to play for TCU back when, you know, them and Boise State were kind of like the 2 teams that weren't, you know, nationally notarized, but they were on the come up. Unfortunately, both of my teams, Texas especially, didn't have a good year at all. And TCU made it to a bowl game, but I think they lost to Georgia. I don't remember because honestly I didn't watch that game because I think it came on while I was at work. But shout out to Gary Patterson though, man. He's done a good job of making that program like noticeable within the last, 5-6 years. They've really blown up on the map. You remember there was one time when pretty much all the main Texas teams in football, it was either, if it wasn't the Longhorns, you played for A&M, or you played for Texas Tech, or maybe you played for Baylor. And TCU's finally, they're getting there. They're just due. Hopefully, they can make some improvements next season, but those are my college teams. NFL teams: Dallas Cowboys, Indianapolis Colts. The only 2 teams I root for. NBA: San Antonio Spurs. That's it. Don't root for anybody else. I have individual players that I like, but as far as a squad, just the Spurs. Is that all the sports I watch? Oh no, college basketball, which I don't keep as much an eye on as I used to, but college basketball: Texas Longhorns, North Carolina, of course, and the Maryland Terps, which is weird. It's the only Maryland team that I feel like I actively root for, because I'm not a Ravens fan, and I don't say I don't care for Terps football, but I'm not like a huge fan, but I do like their basketball team. So just wanted to throw my sports alliances out there real quick. So with that being said, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the national championship game because, unfortunately, I actually did not watch the whole game. I had to work really early that next morning, and I wanted to sacrifice my sleep to watch it. And to be honest, when I woke up and saw the result, I regret not staying up and watching that game, because I am a firm Alabama hater ever since they beat the Longhorns in our national championship game way back when. I can't remember what year that was. I feel like that was the mid 2000s, or maybe maybe around 2010. I'm not sure, but it was back when Colt McCoy, was doing his thing, and Colt got injured like the first or second play of the game, and he got took out, and he got injured, and we almost made a comeback, man. And I firmly believe if Colt McCoy would have played that whole game, we would have won. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I didn't watch this whole game. I only saw the first half, and I just remember watching the first half, and for most of the first half, it just kind of seemed like Alabama was going to do what Alabama was going to do. The defense is, when you talk about Alabama, that's what you hear about the most. And as much as I don't like to admit it, it's true. That defense is stout. They shut people down, and they were shutting Clemson down. Deshaun Watson, he looked lost in that first half. Like, he didn't know what was going on. But something told me I should have stayed up and watched, because the two things in that first half that stood out was that even though Bama's defense pretty much dominated, their offense was not that great. And they only, I believe, put up 6 points in the half. I might be wrong, but they let Clemson kind of linger around. Like, they didn't run as dominant as they were. The scoreboard, I feel like the scoreboard didn't really tell how dominant they were. Like, they should have scored or been able to had a more sizable lead going into halftime. And I remember right before halftime, like a little bit before halftime started, you could kind of see that Deshaun Watson was getting his footing, and he was starting to make a few plays, and it looked like Clemson was finally starting to wake up. Unfortunately, I was so tired that day, and I knew I had to be up for work early the next morning, so I couldn't watch it. But from what I've heard, I missed greatness, and I'm mad that I'm disappointed that I know I missed something epic. I woke up and I watched the highlights of that game, man, and from what I saw, the fourth quarter just looked amazing. And the word that I've been hearing is the game wasn't as good as the Texas and USC, which I think was the Rose Bowl back in the day, but people are saying that it was up there. And that's a bold statement, because for me, the Texas and USC championship game, to me, it's not even just the greatest college game. That's the greatest football game, I think, period, that I've ever watched. Like, I feel bad for people who weren't, I don't know, like if you weren't into college football back then and you missed that game, man, you missed legendary performances from, USC had Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush, who I believe won the Heisman that year, and he was beast in that game. We saw Vince Young cement himself in a legendary performance in that game. And it kind of looked like, from what I saw from the highlights, that Deshaun Watson did something similar, man. It looked like, I guess eventually they woke up. And I'll say, and I guess take my opinion with a grain of salt because I didn't watch the whole game, but the edge that I felt like Clemson would have going into this game was the offense. Because, and not to bash Alabama's quarterback, because he is only a freshman, so I mean, he's only going to do but so much. But in the games that I've seen from them, from like the beginning of the season up until the national championship, he never really progressed to me. Like, they just kind of leaned on the defense to do the work. And it's not to say that he's a bad quarterback. And I'm pretty sure under Nick Saban, he'll find his way. He'll eventually get better. But it just feels like this season he didn't improve enough. And when you got Deshaun Watson on the other side of the field, and we know when Watson's on, man, he's on. Like, and he showed out when he needed to. And I think ultimately it came down to quarterback play. Who's going to make the big plays when we need them to happen. And Deshaun Watson, and also shout out to Clemson receiver Mike Williams, because he was out there beasting from what I saw on the highlights. Those two dudes lit it up, man. Like, they wanted it. I think after last year, after falling short, them boys, they were ready. They wanted this rematch. They wanted this win. And I don't know if Alabama getting rid of Lane Kiffin at the last second, which to me is crazy, but I don't know if maybe that might have played a role in Jalen Hurts. But, I mean, Kiffin was replaced with Sarkisian, who's more than capable. But, again, it's a last-minute change, and it's your national championship game, and you're with a new offensive coordinator. Like, I just feel like that's not the time you want to switch out personnel and fire people. But I'm pretty sure in the long run it'll work out. I'm pretty sure Sarkisian can get them on the right track. But for that one game when you needed it the most, you know, yeah, I guess for Bama it just didn't happen. But we'll see what happens next season. I hope. I'm glad to see that Deshaun Watson did declare for the draft. I'm praying that he doesn't somehow, by a strange twist of events, end up in Cleveland. But from what I'm hearing in the draft, I think they might draft defense, their first pick, which I feel they need everything. So whatever they draft, whatever position they need it, and just hopefully they don't go quarterback. I don't want to see Deshaun Watson go to Cleveland and have all of his potential talent and, you know, just everything go to waste. Because we all know, man, you go to Cleveland, that's where your career goes to die. Like, if you make it out of Cleveland and you live to prosper, you're a rare breed of person. But yeah, that's all I got on national championship game. Like I said, I wish I could go more in depth, but unfortunately I didn't actually watch it. But I did watch these wild card games for the NFL that I want to get into real quick. I won't spend too much time on these because honestly, most of these games I honestly did not care to see. I was semi-interested in Oakland versus Houston, and then when Derek Carr went down, you know, I forgot. I don't remember if that was the last game of their season. Maybe it was a couple games before the last game, but I lost all interest in that game, and I'm mad that I actually watched that game in spite of me knowing I was going to be disappointed, and it just felt off watching it. Like, I know for a fact, and I'm not an Oakland fan, but I was rooting for Oakland because I like seeing new faces in the playoffs. I like seeing new stars emerge, and Derek Carr looked like he was going to be that next guy. And I know for a fact if Derek Carr plays in that game, this is not the same outcome. I mean, props to Brock Osweiler. He definitely went out there. He did his thing. But I know for a fact if Derek Carr plays that game, there's no way. I'm not saying Houston couldn't have won. I won't say that. But I don't think they win 27-14. Maybe they win 27-26. Maybe they go to overtime. I don't know. But, yeah, so that game was disappointing. Seattle versus Detroit, do we really care? Seattle smacked them in the mouth pretty much. Pittsburgh versus Miami, once again, do we really care? I think we all kind of knew. We knew what was going to happen in that game, that Pittsburgh was going to come out and punch them in the mouth and just keep punching them in the mouth. I mean, when you got Le'Veon Bell, Big Ben, Antonio Brown on the same team, all firing at all cylinders, like, what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do. Who did Miami have? Matt Moore? Or I don't remember. I'm probably not even saying the guy's name right. Whoever their quarterback was who replaced Tannehill. Like, what are they going to do against Pittsburgh? So, yeah, those games didn't care about. But the one game I will mention, as a Cowboys fan, that I had my very, very close eye on was Green Bay and New York. And I don't like to trash talk. But I had to hear from Giants fans this entire season about, we swept y'all in the regular season and we're going to do it again in the playoffs. And I stayed quiet. And the reason I stayed quiet is because I knew we had a bye week, and at best the Giants would get a wild card. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to let y'all enjoy these. I'll let y'all enjoy the season sweep. I'll give you props where it's due. Both times y'all played us, y'all defense showed up. You know, it was one of the few times y'all made Dak. He looked like a rookie. You know, they got after him. Their defense, they did the thing. But my thing was, listen, that's regular season. That's cool and all. You got the season sweep. Great job. It's playoff time now. This is when it really counts. So let's see if y'all can even make it past the wild card to even get the chance to play us. And when I saw that they were playing Green Bay, I had a feeling there was a chance for an upset. Really, I can't even call it an upset because Green Bay came into the playoffs on just a hot streak. And that game was interesting, kind of much like the Alabama-Clemson game where in the first half, New York's defense, they were shutting Aaron Rodgers down. Like, they Rodgers, that first half, he didn't, really not even just him, just nobody, couldn't get anything off. They couldn't get any plays going. Nothing seemed to be clicking. It was like all that momentum that they came into the playoffs with just seemed like it disappeared for a little bit. But much like the Alabama-Clemson game, you can't go into halftime up like, were they up like 6-0, or I forgot if Green Bay maybe they scored, but I remember like when halftime came around, it was like you can't go into halftime and only be beating Aaron Rodgers maybe by a point or have him up by a point. I honestly can't remember what the score was at half, but I know it was close. Because the thing about Aaron Rodgers is at some point he's going to turn it on. And as good as the Giants' defense was that first half, their offense was terrible. And I like to rag on Eli. I feel like he's an easy target to make fun of. But I can't even blame Eli for this loss. Because Odell Beckham and the other guy, Sterling, just dropping passes like nobody's business. And it's not like the passes that they were dropping it's not like they were bad throws. Eli was putting the ball where it needed to be. 2 of those drops, I believe, were touchdown receptions, or that should have been touchdown receptions that both got dropped. And their offense just it was so out of sync. And, I mean, realistically, if those drop passes don't happen, the Giants should have been up like 21-0 in the first half. Like, the plays were there and they just weren't making them. And I know it's a whole fuss about, Odell and them were on the boat and all that stuff. I'm not even going to talk about that. All I know is it was playoff time and they didn't show up at all. And Aaron Rodgers showed up in that second half and he lit them up. Like, Aaron Rodgers, man, when people mention elite quarterbacks, this is what an elite quarterback looks like. And I don't mean to turn this into a Ravens bashing session, being a Maryland resident. I'm actually neutral on the Ravens, but I've seen a few Ravens fans who I think are a bit delusional when they say Joe Flacco is an elite quarterback. And it's like, no, bruh, he's not. Aaron Rodgers, when Flacco can make some of the throws that Aaron Rodgers makes, then come back to me and we'll have that elite QB conversation. But as of now, it's not even close, man. This dude, he just does some of the way he can extend plays and just some of the passes he makes. It's like this guy's not human. Like, he's not from here. And the Hail Mary, funny thing about the Hail Mary is right before that play happened, I knew they were going to throw a Hail Mary. And I just assumed, man, Giants defense, they'll show up. Let me run downstairs real quick. I need to whip up something to eat real quick. So I'm texting my friend, and I'm like, hey, man, let me know if somebody scores or anything happens. I went downstairs, got downstairs, maybe like 5 seconds later, I'm getting another text. Green Bay scores. I rushed back upstairs to watch the Hail Mary, and I have so many questions. Like, he made that Hail Mary look like it was backyard play, like something they've been, which I'm pretty sure they probably do practice it, but it shouldn't look that easy. Like, the receiver, it landed right in his arms like he was holding a newborn baby. Like, he placed the ball perfectly. and he just slowly just went to the back of the end zone at the very edge of the end zone, and Rodgers placed the ball perfectly. And I heard this actually on Joe Budden's podcast because they covered the game a little bit. I'd have to go back and watch the play because I don't remember, but I remember them saying nobody jumped, and I don't remember if that's the case, but I wouldn't doubt it because Hail Mary shouldn't look that easy. There's no reason why this guy's in the back of the end zone and he didn't even have to fight for the ball. Like, it just got lobbed up and it just dropped right perfectly in his hands. And then from that point on, the game pretty much, it was the Aaron Rodgers show. He did what Aaron Rodgers does, and he just picked that defense apart. Even with no Jordy Nelson, he lit that defense just on fire. So props to them. As a Cowboys fan, I'm definitely looking forward to playing them next week. I know we beat them in the regular season, but I also know that's not the same team. This game is going to be different. I do believe that Dallas can and will still win. I believe the running game will do enough work to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field so he won't be out here making these crazy Hail Marys and everything else that he can do. But I think it's going to be a tight game. But I think with our running game, if it keeps doing what it's doing, I think we outlast them. I think we probably have a pretty high scoring game, but I think we edge them out. And yeah, but I'm looking forward to that game next week. And actually this entire next week, well, actually, I guess I should say this week because these games are coming on this Saturday and Sunday. But all of these games are intriguing, and I'm so glad that they start around like 4, or at least the Saturday ones do, so I'll be off of work, so I can watch all of them. Seattle and Atlanta, that's going to be a really good game. I'm interested to see if this is going to be the year that Atlanta actually does something in the playoffs, because I feel like every year, and like I like Matt Ryan as a player, and I like Julio Jones, but it just seems like every year we have the story where in the regular season they're lighting it up, they're giving people the business, and then they get to the playoffs and they just fall flat. But we'll see. This year that offense is on fire as always, but it looks even better than it has in previous years. And Seattle, man, it's gonna be a tough game. I want to believe in Atlanta and say they'll win just because I just think the offense. I think if the offense can get on, they'll be too much. Not saying they'll blow Seattle out, but I think they'll be able to hang in there, and they'll be able to pull it out in the clutch moments when they need to. But that's gonna be a tough game because Seattle's rolling, and they gave Detroit the paddle. They paddled them right out the postseason. And with the experience they got, they've made Super Bowl runs before. They've won Super Bowls. They know what it takes, what's at stake. So you know they're going to show up. But if I had to make a pick, I'll go out on a limb. I'm going to believe in Matt Ryan. I'm going to believe in Julio Jones. And that I ain't saying they're going to win the Super Bowl this year because, of course, I'm rooting for Dallas. But realistically speaking, Atlanta does have a chance to win a Super Bowl. That team is definitely that good if they can just keep up what they're doing and not just fall flat in the playoffs like they've done in years past. Houston versus New England, man, do we really care about this game? As much as I would love to see Houston pull an upset, the realist in me knows Bill Belichick, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Brock Osweiler's not gonna know what hit him. Like, he's not gonna know what hit him when that game is over. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if New England just smashes them by like at least 30 points. But you never know. Crazier things have happened. But if I'm a betting man, as much as I hate Brady and I hate the Patriots, you gotta go with the Patriots in that scenario, in that game. Even though I do think in the AFC, and I've said this before, and I guess I'll do this leading on to the next game, if Pittsburgh beats Kansas City, I feel confident saying Pittsburgh's going to the Super Bowl. I just think that trio of Brown, Ben, and Bell, there are not a lot of people that can stop that. And I think they can beat the Pats. I honestly believe they can beat the Pats. And it's not to say that this Kansas City game is a gimme game, because Kansas City's they've been doing their thing too, but just Ben, Brown, and Bell, like that's a nasty trio, and they're all on right now. Like Brown, of course, easily you could argue best receiver in the league. Big Ben is Big Ben. Big Ben always shows up. He can win those really tough and gritty games. Not the prettiest of wins, but he knows how to gut them out. And Bell, people argue him and Zeke. That's 1 and 2. Of course, I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm gonna argue Zeke because I gotta stick by my team. But Bell's that dude, man. He's no joke. That he trashes defenses, and I don't know if I look at Kansas City and I'm just like, how are y'all gonna win this? I know, Alex Smith, he's good. Y'all got Kelsey, he's doing his thing. But I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna be enough. But I'm sticking to my guns. If Pittsburgh gets out of this game, which I don't think this will be a blowout. I think this will be I think Kansas City will definitely play them tough. But if Pittsburgh gets out of this game and they win, I think they're going to the Super Bowl. And for the Dallas-Green Bay game, as I said earlier, it's gonna be a fight. I think we're gonna see a lot of points, a lot of scoring, a lot of crazy things probably on offense. I'm pretty sure Aaron Rodgers is gonna have a few of those moments like he did in the Giants. I'm just hoping he doesn't catch us with a Hail Mary. But it's going to be an exciting game. I think these playoffs this year is definitely, aside from New England and Houston, these playoffs are going to be interesting. We're definitely going to see some great football. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers the sports. It's pretty much all I've been watching. Honestly, haven't been keeping my eye on the NBA too much. I don't really know what's going on. I honestly normally don't pay attention to the NBA until playoff time. But I want to, I guess, since I'm finished sports, let me get into my main topics that I wanted to talk about. So the first anime that I watched, and I finished this. Actually, I think I finished this a few weeks ago, and I have no notes. I'm kind of going off the top. All right, well, I do have the Wikipedia page pulled up in front of me, but I normally like to take notes so I can remember certain things, but I'm doing this off the top. So I ventured out of my little anime comfort zone. I like to normally watch things that are more action-oriented, things that are a little more serious, I guess you could say. But recently I've kind of stepped out of my zone a little bit, stopped watching people get punched in the face, and I started watching shows like Death Parade. That was recommended to me by a friend. That was a pretty cool drama. I watched Erased, which was a really dope, kind of like suspense, drama-ish, as you will. And then I had a friend who recommended Your Lie in April to me, since I told him I was kind of on this drama kick. I was trying to watch something a little different than what I normally watch, and I came across Your Lie in April. And this show, for anybody who hasn't watched, it's very musical influenced. The main character, his name is Kosei Arima, and this show for me is kind of like a tale of two halves. The main, I guess you could say, plot of the show is Kosei has, he's pretty much like a prodigy child pianist. The child geniuses, that people that just at like age 5 they're doing like these crazy recitals and they're playing better than like any adult on earth. And he was kind of one of those kids, and his mom was really, really hard on him to the point of like abuse about getting him to play the piano. And the plot of the show is after his mom died, he kind of fell out of the whole music thing. And the show is, at least the first half, centers more on him trying to get, he's trying to get back into the music, into playing the piano. And he does so with the help of a friend. Actually, should say she kind of dragged him into it, because before he met her, he wasn't trying to play the piano. But he met a violinist named Kaori. I hope I'm saying her name right. She met him, and it was kind of a love at first sight, I should say. And he loved how she played music, but he also loved her too. I should mention these are all like teenagers between probably like 13, 14, around that age. But, the first half of the show was about she was trying to just get him back into it, because he fell off really hard, and he has these episodes where when he tries to play the piano, kind of brings back like traumatic memories of his mom and how she used to treat him, and it almost kind of like it triggers him. And he has this weird thing where he'll play the piano and then he can't hear the notes, and then he kind of starts freaking out because he can't hear the notes, even though in real life he's actually not doing anything wrong. But in his mind, I don't know, it's like it's just really traumatic for him to play, because he attaches the piano to the memory of his mom, and all those memories, unfortunately for him, weren't all so good. And the first half of the show is kind of her just slowly getting him to tip, inch by inch back into the piano, because she realizes how talented he is. And she doesn't want his talent to go to waste. She doesn't like seeing him mope around all the time. And she wants the best for him. So on one front, the show is definitely has a lot about music, of course. You hear a lot of piano in here. A lot of the episodes are centered around like competitions. So you hear the violin, you hear people play these, great like classical music pieces. So on one end, it's a lot about the music, and then on the other half of the show, it's also a lot about, friendships and relationships, and just trying to just make it through life. For him specifically, for Kosei, just as a musician or a struggling musician who's trying to get back, is him trying to like find his footing, back in music. So the first half of the show really focuses on that aspect of her getting him to play again. He slowly starts to practice again. She convinces him, or sometimes forces him, to play in competitions where he doesn't want to play in front of people, but he kind of admires her so much that he ends up, he musters up the courage to do it. And even the times when he goes on stage and he still has those moments where he might freak out in the middle of a performance, he manages to finish his performances, which in itself is a victory, because sometimes he can push himself through the parts where he just kind of like freezes up or whatever. So it's just a real good, dynamic and exploration of just, friendship and trying to help each other out, and him just trying to find his purpose. He's kind of one of those kids. Kosei was a loner, pretty much. I mean, he had a few friends. There were a couple of other side characters worth noting, I should say. Tsubaki, who was his childhood, I guess you could say, like, best friend, and Watari, who he met later on. Or was he? See, this is the bad part. We don't have notes. But I think he met him later on. But he knew Tsubaki since he was younger. And it's kind of weird, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it. There's like a love, like, triangle / quadruplet. Like, there's a lot of love going on in this show. And you kind of see, you see how it plays out. That's also a major part of like. Actually, I can't even just say the first half because it definitely carries on into the second. But what I was interested in is, during the first half of the show, I'm like, all right, I can appreciate this show. I like, of course, anybody who listens to this podcast, you know me, I love music. I don't listen to like classical, but I appreciate music in any form. So I was like, all right, this is cool. You get to see this kid kind of grow and progress, and you get to see him get his feet back, under him. And it's good to see, his friends are helping him out. So the first half of the show was about that. And then without spoiling it too much, as eventually he starts getting into competitions. And after the competitions start to happen, well, I'm like, all right, well, where's the show going to go now? Because when you first start watching it, it just kind of seems like that's the point, that the show is just him getting back into the music. And once he makes it back into the music, it's like, all right, now where does the show go from here? And then the second half of the show kicks off. And show's only, how many episodes? 20. I wish I had it pulled up. Oh, no, I do have it pulled up in front of me. It's about 22 episodes. Something like that. So towards the second half is kind of when the show gets really, really depressing. I guess without, running the risk of spoiling, I don't want to be that guy, even though this show's been out for a while. But you find out some things about Kaori, which is the girl that he's kind of secretly in love with. It's not really a secret. It's kind of obvious, even though in the show, I feel like they made that dynamic a little weird. Because you kind of knew that he loved her, but I guess, he was kind of a shy kid, so he didn't really outright say it, but as a viewer, you definitely catch on to it. But towards the second half of the show is when it goes past the music. In fact, you could argue that the second half of the show isn't even so much about the music anymore. I mean, it's still there, but I feel like the mood and everything kind of shifts, and it focuses a lot more on his relationship with Kaori and also with his friend Tsubaki, and this whole little kind of love triangle thing they got going on, which, like I said, to avoid spoilers, I won't really get into, but you start to see that play out, and then you find out some things about Kaori. How do I say this without spoiling? You find out things about Kaori that make you think this relationship might not go so good. This might end on a bad note. And Kosei kind of knows that something's up and that something's wrong, and he's kind of stuck at this crossroad because he kind of has no idea what to do. And then that aspect is when like his personal life also starts to mess with his music, and he kind of falls back into this funk again. And that's kind of how the second half of the show is, to me, kind of represented him. The first half was him getting his feet back under him, and now it's like, all right, now we got to start walking. And even when things go bad, we got to keep walking. And that's kind of how the second half of the show plays out. And like I said, I won't spoil the ending, but man, depressing. Heartfelt. Trying to think of even how to describe it. Heartfelt, but still depressing the way it ended. But I do like, I ain't gonna say I like the ending, but it was cool. Like, I guess I can kind of see why they ended it the way they did. But all in all, this is definitely one of those shows, it'll tug at the heartstrings a lot at times. If you like dramas, if you like emotion, you like a little bit of comedy, a little bit of romance sprinkled in with some music in your anime, give it a shot. it was definitely worth the watch. When I first started watching it, about the first 2 episodes, I was like, this is okay, but it's not, not really my cup of tea. But I kept watching it, and by the time I finished it, I was like, this was worth it. It was different than what I'm normally watching, even though to be honest, after I watched that show, it was so depressing that I don't think I'm going to watch dramas for a while now. I want to go back to watching shows where people get punched in the face. I want to watch shows with a little more simpler plots, not so much emotion going on. But it was definitely, it was worth the watch, man. Lots of things to appreciate, just good emotion, great character development, great music if you love classical music. And it just it twists a lot of different elements all into one just good show. And, I think what it set out to accomplish, it definitely accomplished. To me, what I took away from it mainly was just about growth, just somebody who kind of lost their way, and they kind of found their way back again, and they still, got to go through hardships, but they figured out how to get through it and how to deal with it. So, yeah, Your Lie in April, that's on Netflix. So if you got Netflix, you like drama animes, or maybe you want to watch something a little different, man, give it a shot. Try to make it past the first couple episodes. Like I said, the first about 2 episodes, you might be kind of like, but give it time to build up, and I think you'll learn to like it like I did. But I'm going to switch gears now because that show is depressing to talk about. We're gonna talk about something a little more up my alley, a little more violent. I did not know that Ajin season 2 on Netflix until my brother told me. So about 2 days after he told me, I pretty much decided, all right, I'm gonna binge this. For people who don't know, Ajin is one of those Netflix exclusive animes. It is done in a similar animation style as Knights of Sidonia, if you've watched that. So if you feel kind of weirded out by like that kind of like cell shade 3D style, whatever you want to call it, anime, this might not be for you. But if you can get past that, because it is, and even now, even after watching Knights of Sidonia in season 1 of Ajin, there are still times when that kind of animation style, like it bugs me a little bit. But if you can get past that part, it's a pretty dope show, especially if you just like action anime. Ajin in general is about Ajins. Ajins are pretty much like demi-humans. They're humans that can't die. And normally the way that they find out they can't die is somehow you get killed, you get hit by a truck, like our main character did, and you end up getting back up, and you have like this black, how do I describe it? They emit like these black, like dust particles that form into what Ajin are, and Ajin are kind of like, it's kind of like your ghost beast, if you will, that kind of follows you around, but it can fight, it can take commands if you know how to control it. It's dope. I love the style of the actual like Ajin ghost spirit, whatever you want to call them. So season 2, I guess if you haven't seen season 1, quick brief rundown of season 1. The main character is Kei Nagai, and he's just kind of like this little morbid, really Debbie Downer kind of kid almost. Like it seems like he has a disdain for everybody around him. But he finds out in season 1 that he's an Ajin, and I won't spoil season 1 too much if you haven't seen it, but season 1 is kind of about him finding out that he's an Ajin. Ajin, unfortunately, are not treated so well in the society that he lives in. A lot of them are taken in for experimentation. People don't like them. People are scared of them. You know how it is. People fear what they don't understand, that whole thing. So a lot of the season 1 is just kind of about him being on the run, and then he runs across this dude named Sato, who is probably one of my favorite anime villains as of recent. and he's trying to band all of the Ajin together to kind of fight back against the government because, you know, the government's been taking them in for experimentation. So season 1 kind of runs through that part. By the end of season 1, you realize Sato's that dude. He's not to be played with. He will body you in an instant, and he won't think about it. He won't care about it. So he has some really great fight sequences in season 1. So if you haven't seen season 1, go back and watch that. I believe it's only 12 episodes, and season 2 is only 13. They might both be 13. They're really quick watches. You could binge each season in a day, really, if you wanted to. But so season 2, well, I'll start with this. When season 1 ended, all right, I guess I am giving away a spoiler. Whatever. If you haven't seen Ajin season 1, just mute this part or skip the rest of the podcast. Watch season 1 before you come back. But season 1 ends basically with Sato, who's the main villain, as I said earlier, kind of making his demands, and he's like, basically, if you guys don't give us some kind of rights, some kind of civil rights, if you guys don't start treating us right, we're about to take this whole country over. So he initiates these phases. I forgot what phase 1 was. He had phase 1, and then phase 2, which was like an assassination hit list, and then phase 3 for him was like a government takeover. So when season 2 starts, season 2 is pretty much phase 2 and 3 rolled into one. So it's the assassination hit list, and it's him basically like, dude, we're about to take over this whole country, and we're about to run all of y'all out of here. Because the thing I like about Ajin, I love a good villain, and Sato's one of those villains where he's just crazy. Like, there's no other way to describe it. And those villains to me are the most fun because, you know, you can't bribe a villain like that with money or anything like that. Like, to him, this whole Ajin thing, man, it's just a game. Like, it's us against, you know, humans, or pretty much Ajin against the world, and let's see who wins. And he just kind of has fun just messing with society and just taking people out. And he and Kei Nagai, at one point during, you know, if you watch the first season, you know, I don't say they were on the same page, but they tried to coexist. Didn't work out. Now they're at each other's necks. Kei wants to kill him. And I like season 2 kind of, I can't say it was better than season 1, to be honest. I felt like season 1 was a bit more intense, I guess I would say. But season 2 wasn't too far off. You still get to see Kei try to figure out how he's gonna take Sato down. And then, you know, he's kind of, you know, he's different from Sato, though. He kind of has his own motivations. He's not worried about trying to take over the world. He's trying to chill out. He just doesn't want to be bothered. But he realizes he can't sit idle on the sideline, because as long as Sato's around, he's going to have an issue. So I like how they play that off of that dynamic. And then we also get, you know, a lot of the other returning characters. The agent, Tosaki, and I cannot remember the girl's name that protects him. But she still shows up. She has a few dope fights. I also like that, without spoiling, you get to see some new Ajin. Like, you get to see Ajin do things that we did not see in the first season. And it was also cool to see Kei kind of progress, because, you know, as in the first season of Ajin, and even starting a lot of parts of the second season, he was getting better with his Ajin, but he still didn't quite know how to control it all the way. And this season does kind of dive into more about what Ajin are like, what they can do if you can train them right. The doctor guy, I know I'm terrible with character names, but the doctor that they have on their side, him and Kei have a lot of back and forth combos about the Ajin, and, you know, the doctor's asking him how many can you create at one time and things like that. And it's just cool to kind of see that progress and see K eventually gets better with his Ajin. He does take his licks though in this season, I will say. The fight scenes, I still feel like season 1 had better fight scenes. Not to say that the season 2 fight scenes were bad. K definitely does though. He takes his licks in this season. He catches the business a couple times. I love seeing the agent, whose name unfortunately I can never remember. You know what? I gotta stop. I gotta find her name because it's gonna piss me off if I can't. Azumi. There we go. So Azumi, who protects Tosaki, as you all know, she's an Ajin, which some people in the show don't know, but she has some fights in here, and actually, she gets a pretty formidable challenge in one of her fights. She took some licks too. Like, I like how in season 2, it did seem like for a while, man, when at least in terms of the physical confrontations, the villains were getting the best. Like, they were up on the scoreboard. They were definitely getting up on the scoreboard. So yeah, the characters in season 2, we do get introduced to a few new characters, a few returning characters. Without spoiling what he does, I know in the first season, I liked Kei's friend Kaito, and then in the first season, I can't remember after what episode, but he kind of just disappeared. He does return in the second season. I won't spoil too much what he does, but I'm happy that he's back. I like how he gets in the mix, and he's not even an Ajin, but he's still down to scrap. Like, that's the kind of homie. That's who you need on the squad when it gets real. But he shows up, and he actually meets a really interesting dude in the juvenile center that he was locked up in, which I guess that's a mini spoiler, but whatever. I'll say this. The guy that he met in this juvenile center, I'm praying that if they do a season 3, he is in there, because that guy's Ajin is on some other stuff. And I'm going to just leave it at that. That guy's Ajin, you don't get to see him fight, but I know he's on another level. But I'm hoping in season 3, if they make one, he's in there. Other things covered in season 2, you kind of get to see more. I hate to draw this comparison. It might be off. But for people who, if you watch The Walking Dead, especially, the recent seasons with Negan and everything, the latter half of The Walking Dead, before, it went off for the season, you kind of got a glimpse into the mindset, not just of Negan, but like his people and the dynamic between why they follow him, why they allow him to be the leader. And I feel like with the Negan, Walking Dead aspect, you kind of get a sense that it's not so much that people respect him, they're just terrified of him, because if you cross the line, you're done. And you kind of you see glimpses of that in Ajin in this season also, with Sato and Tanaka, who's like his right hand man. You kind of see these moments, and without giving away too much, that there are points where they question Sato's leadership and what he's actually doing, because at one point it kind of seems like, all right, we have a clear and concise goal here, let's go for it. But as the season goes on, Sato, man, he wilds out. he starts doing some, he starts going in Sato mode, man. He's reckless. If you've watched Ajin, man, this dude's reckless. He does whatever. He doesn't care. And you start to see his people a little bit. They're like, all right, I thought I was in this for the right cause, but this guy over here, man, he's bugging out. Like, so you get to see how that dynamic plays out between him and his troops, and that ends in a very, excuse me, I'm over here sick, but that ends in a very interesting way. Also, you get to see, you get to see some loyalty be tested. You get to see who's really down for the team and who's not. And also, circling back to Tosaki, you all know how he's been cutting through a lot of red tape. He keeps cutting through the red tape, and this season, he gets caught up in some some bad spots on more than one occasion on this show. So I would say for season 2, it definitely picks up good right where season 1 left off. To me, I think it was a little slower than season 1. I feel like things didn't really kick off too much until around like the latter half of the season. But when things did kick off, definitely got real. Towards the latter half, you do get a lot of good fights going on. Lots of good Ajin fights. Sato's still catching bodies like nobody's business. As I mentioned, his phase 2 was an assassination hit list. A lot of people got hit. And the ending set up, won't spoil it, definitely set up for a possible season 3. They got a lot of different directions they can go in now. I'm interested to see what they do with season 3. I'm pretty sure they'll make one. Also heard, on a note, if Wikipedia is correct, that there will be a live-action Ajin that I believe is actually directed by the same people who did the Rurouni Kenshin live-action, which if you saw the Rurouni Kenshin live-action, I was one of the best. Well, all right, I've only seen the first movie. I have the second one, and I still haven't watched it. But that was one of the best anime to live-action adaptations I've ever seen. So hopefully that team can bring that skill set they got over to Ajin, because I know in terms of action, this is definitely a good anime. If you've never watched Ajin, you want to see some action. You want to see kind of some supernatural beings do their thing. Give it a watch. Like I said, lots of violence, lots of action. Plot's real easy and simple to follow. It's a very straightforward show. To me, not every show needs to be complex with plots and subplots and all that extra. Sometimes it's good to have a show. This is what you got. This is what's going on. Here you go. And you get to see the homie K Nagai do his thing. Get to see Sato continue to do his thing. And it's kind of a may the best man win. And I won't spoil it, but you'll see how it ended. I feel like if you like season 1, you'll like season 2. If you've never watched Ajin, give it a good look. Like I said, the animation style might probably throw you off a little bit, but if you can get past the animation style, you can get past that cell shade, 3D style, like Nice to Sidonia, I don't see why, if you like action, you won't like this show. So, yeah, I think that's about it. I'm coming up almost on an hour now, and I don't want to keep y'all here too long. I know you probably got things to do, people to see, all that good stuff. Or if you're at work, you got work to do, don't get fired because you're listening to me. I'm not worth it, but I appreciate you sticking by me. So yeah, we covered some sports, covered the Clemson football, anime. I think next week, let's see, what do we have coming up here? Oh, I will be back with my co-host in crime, my homie the Anti-Cool, who helped me review the UFC card, because there is another card, I believe, on Sunday. So I will be watching that card closely. I'm not excited about seeing BJ Penn, but I'll save that for that card. But yeah, we'll definitely link up. I'll link back up with him. We'll review that card next week. I'll probably end up covering these wildcard games this weekend. And I also got some albums I want to talk about, man. I gotta do an episode on this Tone Deaf Polymer album. I feel really strongly about this album, and I really want people to just give it a listen, because it's something different. It's something dope. And I want that album to have an episode kind of by itself. But, so yeah, I'm going to be working on that sometime soon. But, yeah, that's all I got for now. This has been episode 3 of the Dojo Talk podcast. I'm your host, Serial Sensei. Look me up on WordPress under Serial Sensei. You can look me up on YouTube under the same name. I'm also on Twitch, which haven't been on too much lately. Hopefully that'll change, but I'm also on there if you want to check me out. I will leave relevant links to this episode in the description. Also, I'll leave a link to the intro song because I switched it up this week. This intro song that I use is my homie Richard Desiree, personal friend of mine, great rapper, talented, probably one of literally, and I'm not just saying this because I know him, but probably literally one of the most talented people I've ever met. I'll leave a link to that song, which is entitled Blind Ambition. I'll try to find the Bandcamp link, and I'll leave that down there, so go check that album out. And yeah, so thanks for watching. It's my day off. I'm going to go enjoy my day off and be lazy and wash clothes, all that good stuff. Hope you guys have a good day, and until next time, I will catch you guys later.